Sobrang ganda. Ang ganda sa ano. Picture ako. Tapos ito naman ang dagat. See, may mga tao na agad. Yung boat. Ay, hindi. Alon pala yan. Lalaki ng alon, ah. Grabe. Ang ganda ng sunrise. Natatabunan ng ano, yung sikat ng araw eh. Ng bundok. Ganda. Kalawakan. Kalawakan. Oh, yan oh. See? See that? See that? Ayun. Wow. Nakublihan ng ano yung araw. Diyan. Yan ang tinamaan. Siguro lalabas pa dyan.
Tapos yung Walua Falls. Yung
Walua
isa pa yung
Falls,
Walia
Sahana.
Falls. Pabalik na yun para kasi parang di rin masyadong maraming tao dun sa park.
In half a mile, keep left to stay on
Famous
Hawaii.
beach in all of Hawaii would have to be
We get
Waikiki.
up.
From a surfing point of view, that's a gentle
Ano na
wave that
klaseng
breaks for a
akyat?
long time. It's
Gypsy.
fun to ride on a long
Gypsy.
Malibu surfboard. It's fun to take your dog out with you or have your girlfriend ride on your
Nakita mo yun?
shoulders.
Merong ano?
Sometimes you can even take your Mai Tai out there and not spill a drop. Yeah, it's pretty gentle. Also on the island of
Thunder,
Oahu would be
kulog yun eh.
Hawaii's most famous
Lightning.
big wave beaches on its north shore. Sunset Beach and the scary Bonsai Pipeline with its thundering big tubes crashing onto a shallow reef.
Oh,
Gotta say,
yun, oh.
you need coconuts of steel to surf Pipeline when it's big. But Maui has its own big wave beach that's very well known to surfers around the world. And just in case the giant surf isn't scary enough, this break goes by the name of Jaws. Waves up to about 70 feet can break
Oh my
here.
gosh.
Though usually only on a few days each year when the ocean swells are at their maximum, which usually happens in the late fall or during winter. Surfers are towed into the waves by jet skis. This beach is not easy to get to, and that's probably a good thing. When it's big and rideable, expect a large crowd to be watching from the cliffs above. I'm going to point out the turn where you can access the track to get to the cliffs above Jaws up ahead. It can be messy and often a muddy hike to get there, so I don't suggest trying it unless you're sure that it's a big surf day and you're really committed to spending a few hours to see it with your own eyes.
Hindi na lang. Hahikin mo daw.
To a admit that for about the first hour, in terms of seeing things, the road to Hana can be a little boring. Just hang in there, okay? Don't judge the drive by the first hour. Things keep getting more and more interesting the further we go. The second important thing is that there are many scenic points along the way, and the experience of the road to Hana is about the journey. It's not that Hana is this incredible oasis at the end of the drive. Hana is a small town and very typical of Hawaiian towns, but pleasantly low-key and undeveloped. I just don't want you to feel let down when we get there. Like I said, this drive is very much about the drive itself. Here's what I would suggest as our plan for the day. As we drive towards Hana and Ohio Gulch, we should stop at the places that interest you. Having done this drive so many times, it's my opinion that it's better to stop a lot on the way there and then drive back directly without stopping so much. This will be a long day, and you'll feel less like stopping once we turn back. So our tour today is structured like this. I'll provide commentary and stories and suggest stops as we drive outbound. I'll tell you about interesting places as we approach them, and I'll always tell you where to turn off or pull in for parking. On our return trip, I'll do more storytelling to help the drive pass by quickly. If we take our time and stop at the places that I suggest, then we'll arrive in Hana in about 3 hours or so. Some people get to Hana and then turn around and come back. I strongly recommend that if we have time, we should continue past Hana and visit the Ohio pools at Kipahulu, which are about another 45 minutes further down the road. I'll tell us about the next part of the journey as we get closer. Of course, you can stop on the way back too if you want to take another look at something. It's all up to you to decide on how much you want to stop, but I'll give you my top 5 must-do list up ahead. The 0 mile marker is coming up. 0 mile marker. You might not have seen it because it frequently gets stolen as a souvenir. There are about 620 curves on this road.
620 curves.
Please, you're more than welcome to count them all and let me know what the final tally is. Also along the way, you'll cross 59 bridges. That's a number I'm sure of. And of those bridges, 46 of them have only one lane. The etiquette at the one-lane bridges is to allow cars to pass in the order that they arrived. No one likes people who push ahead of the queue. There are going to be a lot of places that we'll want to stop and get out of the car. Be sure that we're able to completely pull out of the driving lane of the road anytime we stop. We don't want to block this narrow road under any circumstances. You'll also see that there are many local people who use this road for commuting too. They know the road very well, and usually they want to go a little quicker than the tourists. If the number of cars builds up behind us, pull over and let the traffic go past us. Don't feel pressured into rushing, just relax and chill. But do concentrate. We might be smart and considerate, but expect others around us to be careless. There's a good chance that at some stage, it'll probably rain, and the road can become slick. So adjust your driving accordingly. Okay, it's like driving with your dad, isn't it? Enough lectures from me. The straight line distance from Kahului, where the airport is, to Hana is 52 miles, but it'll take us 3 hours or so for us to get there.
Tourist din siguro yun. Pero dapat may etiquette ka mag-pull over ka sa kabilang side. Yung sa may gilid. Pass mo muna yung mga mabibilis. Siguro nanguha siya ng...
Shortly.
Wow.
These are the Twin Falls. We can pull into the car park clearing on the right. It's an easy walk to the falls and definitely worth a quick stop if we started early and we just want to see everything along the way. If we're keen to keep going to bigger and better things, then it would be okay to skip this if you want. The access is through private property, but the owner's okay with people using the trail. You'll see a fruit stand there at the pullout. Now remember, don't leave any valuables behind in the car here or at any other stop we make. Leaving valuable things in the truck
Twin
does
poles,
not
ayun, oh.
necessarily guarantee that they'll be safe.
Bakit naka-lock naman?
Unfortunately,
Saan ka magpaparada?
thieves do prey on unsuspecting tourists sometimes. Enjoy the falls if you want to stop, or let's just keep going.
i-stopan. Nakita mo, hinarangan nila lahat.
Saan dyan?
May parking. Napakalayo
There's
ng
something I
lalakarin
probably
mo.
should have told you
Walang
before we
istapan
reach
dun.
Twin Falls.
Hindi pa.
Take
wala pa.
care if you're swimming and visiting waterfalls. There are a couple of hazards to be aware of. Firstly, swimming at the top of waterfalls can obviously be dangerous. Currents can wash you over the falls. And this isn't just at the large falls. Even small falls can surge with water. Even falling just 4 feet onto the rocks, yeah, that's gonna hurt. And speaking of surging water, flash flooding can occur at almost any time.
Bamboo.
Be especially attentive when there are dark rain clouds on the mountain above. Heavy rain can come charging down the mountain through these streams. If you hear the sound of rushing water suddenly get louder, it could mean a surge of water is coming down. Now, I don't want to panic you, it's rarely a problem, but just being aware can avoid a bad situation. But of course, relax and enjoy. Visiting the various waterfalls is a wonderful experience, and swimming in them, that's a whole lot of fun too.
Kailangan stop.
May red eh. Nakita, that's the share road.
Abet tumanda na sila.
I don't know.
Stop on red, sabi siya.
Stop here on red eh. Naka-red eh. Pero ba't ba't sumigi na yung dalawa? Ibig sabihin, may dumadaan sa kabila. I don't know. Baka
Lecture mo na, baka wala naman. Sumigi na sila eh. Tuloy pa naman eh. Wala pang dumadaan ngayon.
Ayun yung bridge. Isa-isa lang. Hihinto ka rin dun. Kasi ano lang siya.
Okay, sabay-sabay na tayo.
Maliit na bridge. Mga ilang bridge daw? 100 something?
60.
Akala ko 100. My goodness. Yan mga ka-YouTube. Yan ang aming pupuntahin. Sa mapa, makita mo parang bituka. Nakakahilong nga pala. Oh.
Stop at on our drive today.
Ayan.
When one of these is coming up, you'll hear this sound.
Oh, nice. Ang
These
doorbell
places are the K&A Arboretum, the K&A Peninsula, Wayanapa State Park, Wailua Falls, and the Ohio Pools in the Haleakala National Park
So
in Kipahulu.
Five.
The first of these must-stop places is still at least 30 minutes in front of us. So we'll spend this first part of the drive getting used to the road. I'm going to tell you about much more than just the 5 must-stops. If we've started early and it's still before 10 a.m., then we have lots of time, and we can make many more stops at the other places I'll tell you about.
Uwi na lang.
Many waterfalls are right by the road, so it only takes minutes to park, have a look around, and take a photo.
Kinahaponin. Ano pala bangin-bangin.
Marami naman palang puno ka.
Hindi. Ang natin na lang, baka dito lang to.
Eh, at least yung mga unang-unang stop.
Not my place to tell you what you can and cannot do, but let me explain a few facts. Back in 2006, which was a long time ago now, an earthquake caused a lot of damage to that section of the road. In fact, making it impassable. Since then, the road has been repaired and is fully open, though small parts remain unpaved. The road can be narrow and rough at times, but through travel is possible. Locals or things you read on TripAdvisor may say the road is fine and even recommend doing it. But what they don't take seriously is that you are almost 100% likely to be driving a rental car. Many of the rental companies do not allow their vehicles to be taken around the backside of Haleakala. Now, the chances of something going wrong back there are slim, but just be aware that you might get severely punished by the rental company if something happens. Without any exaggeration, getting a tow truck back there will likely cost you thousands of dollars. My best guess is that more than 95% of travelers on the road to Hana turn around and come back the same way. To make that more interesting,
anong pupuntahan
I'll have
naman doon?
completely new commentary for the return drive.
Parang mabilis?
No.
Pabalik?
Medyo maano doon, rough road. May mga turn
View
out,
rin.
pero
May mga view. Pwede ka dudumaan pabalik kung
Pero
gusto
hindi
mo.
nire-recommend.
Pero hindi niya nire-recommend kasi hindi ganito.
hindi. May mga patchy road. Wala naman.
View of the irrigation system. Sugar has quite a story on Maui. And if you drive with me from Kihei to Wailea, you can visit a sugar museum celebrating that
Tingnan mo yun, ang
history.
galing nun, no? Local nga
Local
siguro
yun.
yun.
Okay na ako pag ganito. Hindi mo nag-a-apple si Tol. Yung jeep.
Yung jeep na bagal. Mahirapan din yun kasi mataas. Eto yung tulay. Eto dalawahan. Mahirap dito, mataas na sasakyan.
More action like this as we get further along.
Ito
If you're
yung mga
susceptible to motion
isa-isang
sickness,
ano.
I suggest two things. Take a turn at being the driver, or if you can't do that, avoid reading anything while we're moving. One other suggestion for the way
Sa'yo,
back,
ayokong mag-ano,
try chewing gum.
chewing gum.
Chocolate na lang.
Chocolate. Hindi, sanay naman na tayo kasi nag-aano na tayo. Ang sarap ng sasakyan natin, ha?
Grabe ka.
Okay lang yan, natumbling lang.
Huwag mong galawin yung ay po. Chat. What the? Tingnan mo. Isaksak mo mabuti. Huwag mong ginagalaw yung ano.
Ayan na, babalik yan. Oo, yun naman ito. Ayan o. Sobrang
Just around these corners. Then we're going to pass by a grove of rainbow eucalyptus trees on the left. They have thick, strong trunks and are growing in a tight bunch close to the road. This is one of the most spectacularly colored trees you will ever see. Most trees save their color display for the flowers and leaves. The rainbow eucalyptus has brightly colored streaks right on its bark. It almost looks unnatural, like a painter has brushed random streaks of color on the trunk.
Asan yun?
We'll have an opportunity to get up close to some of these trees when we reach the K&A Arboretum further down the road.
Mahulog sa atin.
I do recommend that we get out at the Arboretum and take a look at the rainbows and a bunch of the other plants. I'll let you know when we get closer.
Gago. No passing. Para pa U-turn siguro to. Saan naman?
Hindi nila diniretso itong daan natin.
Meron bang mountain na diretso?
Ganda oh.
Ang ganda naman. Talaga itong nature talaga. Maliit na may sasakyan ni Manong, hirap pa rin siya eh. Kaya dito, malakas ang ano ng makina ng sasakyan mo. Hindi pwede lumang sasakyan dito kung kakaling at mayaan. Ang tawag
Kaya
dito
naman,
eh, baka
kaya ibababa mo yan. Ano?
matirik. Titirik ka dito. Meron yan. Satellite yung ano mo eh.
Hindi, ito.
Hayaan mo na yan. Meron ka namang kinuhang app. Anong app nga yan? Tiki app?
Gypsy.
Gypsy app. Yeah, we recommend that one. Really helpful. Ooh. Pero sabi ni Ateng, yung driver hindi dapat manood at concentrate lang mag-drive. Kung hindi, malaglag ka sa bangin. Mababaw lang yung bangin dito, tsaka maraming puno. Meron kang sasaglilakan, hindi ka agad laglag.
Truck.
Now we're really starting to get the idea of what the drive to Hana is all about. I'll keep pointing out the places I think are most worthy of our time, but we have not yet reached the first of our must-stop places. Just because we might see a bunch of cars parked beside a bridge, it doesn't always mean there's something worth seeing. I'm working on the assumption that we are taking just one day of our vacation to do this. So, I want to make sure our time is well spent. If we are eager to explore what's around every corner, then I applaud your curiosity and encourage you to stop. All you like. I'm just an app. You're in charge here.
I'm just an app.
Salita rin siya.
Maraming bamboo. 1-lane bridge, 10 mph. Wala nakasunod sa likod natin.
Wala na yung black. Bumalik na.
No, mabagal lang siya.
Irrigation ditch built by the East Maui Irrigation Company to divert water from the wet side of the mountain to the sugar plantations. We can get a good glimpse of it as we drive past. No need to stop and get out.
Ayos yun.
Tali yun. Ere?
Ito na naman. 8 tons. Ay, wala na. Parang irigasyon lang sa balong yan.
Malinis eh, diba?
Wala palang ka. Torya eh.
Like we might enjoy walking a short trail, then we might like to do the Waikamoe Ridge Trail, which is coming up. The shorter walk is only about 0.8 miles long and takes us through rainforest, past some scenic viewpoints, and up to some bamboo forest. The first section is easy, but the second part gets a little steeper, and there are large roots across the trail. Plus, it can also be a little bit muddy if it's rained recently. It takes about 30 minutes to complete the short loop, and it's worth stopping if we're doing a more thorough exploration along the road to Hana. There's a longer loop of about 2 miles if you want to go further. I'll point out the parking area as we get closer. Expect the parking to be crowded. This is kind of a popular trail.
No thanks.
Yung mga iba kasi mahilig silang mag-hike, kaya yan talagang pupuntahan nila yan.
It's the case anywhere in Hawaii. If you want to stop and take the walk, don't leave any valuables in the car or in plain
Ito
sight.
na. Parkingan.
Galing.
Gusto mo mag-hike.
Hairpin corner we go through, but we should just keep going. There's nothing particularly special to see here.
That's good.
A few more curves further along, there are 2 places of interest we might want to stop. The first is the Garden of Eden. The
Ooh,
gardens
I
have
wanna
an
see that.
excellent collection of exotic
Really?
flowers, trees, and even birds.
Matatagal lang kayo.
It's a great opportunity to see many of these things in a single place
Ayun na,
and a
may
chance
falls
for
na.
some
Kita-kita
stunning
na pala
photos.
dito eh.
If we're traveling with children, it might also be a good stop as they can feed the ducks there. A claim to fame here is that from the gardens, we can see the Keopuka Rock, which was featured in the opening sequence of the original Jurassic Park movie, if you remember the helicopter flying in. The Garden of Eden is a paid attraction. The free Arboretum at Kane is 10 minutes ahead if you don't want to pay here. I'll point out the entrance up ahead. Just past the Garden of Eden is the lower Puahokamoa Falls. The falls will be on our left, or on the ocean side of the road, which in Hawaiian we would say is Makai. There's a small parking area and a trail to get to the falls, which I'll point out. The falls drop about 200 feet and make for a really great photo. That's if there is water running through the stream, which isn't always the case. Now, this is not a must-do, but if we're enthusiastic to take a look, then pull over and take the short walk. The upper Puahokamoa Falls are on the right side of the highway, just by the 11-mile sign. The upper falls are on private property, so I suggest we give them a miss. But we should be able to catch a glimpse of them from the road.
Ayun yung nakita ko kanina.
Mamaya pa daw
Posto.
natin.
Ayan na yung mga bilihan.
Yun.
Ito pala yun, Garden of Eden.
Here is the entrance to the Garden of Eden. Turn right at this next road. Now remember, this is a paid attraction.
Oh,
Sarado
nice.
pa.
Napicturean ko na,
Dito po.
tama na yan. Wala tayong huminto dyan. Ano lang yan? Ginawa nila yan. Nagtanim-tanim sila dyan, yung mga local dito. Tapos ginawa na nila ang tourist spot. Nire-register din siguro nila yan. Babayad sila ng sa government.
Tax.
Ayun yung dagat, oh.
Area for the lower Puahokamoa
Oh,
Falls.
this is the falls.
The pullout is on our left or on the ocean side. On the next bridge, we get a view of the upper Puahokamoa Falls. There's a wall built up against the bridge to prevent closer access to the falls.
Hindi tayo pupasok
The
sa
owner
loob.
really
Diyan
doesn't
na tayo
want
sa
people
labas ng
entering onto the
picture.
private property.
Private
If we
property.
simply slow down on the bridge, we'll catch a great view.
Kasi ako sa kanila, hindi ko makapatch. Kung maliwanag pa.
Maliwanag ko. Tulog pa iba niyan.
Use the washrooms.
Oh, yun.
I
Kaya-
recommend we should stop in here quickly as we get an excellent view along the coastline. And we'll also see forward to the Kayanay Peninsula from the lookout. This gives us an excellent impression of the volcanic coast. Hikers enjoy the trails that take you down to the ocean and return from this park. The entrance to the parking area and facilities is well marked. If it's a clear part of the day, we should quickly turn in and take a photo.
Paano malalaman? May tao.
Ayun o. Naka-stop naman lahat.
Nakakatakot siya na. Parang mag-abot kayo doon sa gitna. Kilo lang kayo. Saan yung falls?
We're about to drive around the small yet scenic bay before we climb onto the next headland. This is Honamanu Bay, and it's characterized by its black sand and pebbles. You might remember me saying back at Jaws that it's in the winter that the really big waves can hit the Hawaiian Islands. So sometimes in the winter, this beach gets really great surf, and surfers will even make the trek out here. But I don't recommend swimming here unless you're really familiar with Hawaiian surf, undertows, and strong currents.
Oh,
There's dirt road access to the beach, but I wouldn't try taking a rental car down there either. If you're determined to get down to the beach for a closer look, there's a rough dirt track that takes you down to the most open part of the beach. I'll point it out.
Pwede mo na isaksak yung misa.
Ganda oh. Ganda ng nature.
Tayo kasunod ah.
Wala tayong sinusundan, wala tayong kasundan. Tumirik na yung sasakyan yan dyan.
Buti na nga eh.
Walang mata. Dito pala, sabi sa'yo, dito sinuting yung sa Jurassic eh. King Kong. Jungle.
One road.
The track that turns off to the left here is the way to the best part of the beach. But like I said, this isn't a path to take a rental car. Find a parking space off the road just ahead, and then walk down the trail to the beach. Later in our drive, we'll see another black sand beach that is a whole lot easier to get to and is one of our must-do stops. As we climb up, we'll catch glimpses back to this picturesque bay. You can try pulling into one of the openings on the left side of the road, but I haven't been able to find a clearing that gives us that perfect picture. But we can just slow down and take in the view as we drive.
May slow down ka daw.
Eh, nandito na ang picturean. Mamaya na lang.
Yield. Paano nasa gitna tayo? Paano kaya, anong din kaya gusto nung sasakyan na nakaharang siya sa gitna, hindi na tayo makakadaan.
Baka pag nag-pull over ako. Ano siya? Hintuan yata lahat din yung mga kasunod natin.
Oo, kasi nag-iihi din sila eh. To go use the restroom.
Hindi na kami tao.
Huwag ka masyadong mabilis, Tabit. Kakatakot din ah. Wala naman tao sa likod mo.
It's tempting to pull over here, but we never quite catch the full view of the bay.
Wala nga.
Many people stop up at the right-hand corner up ahead, but I'm always frustrated not to get that perfect view back to the inlet. We'll actually see the best view of Honolulu when we drive back.
Drive back.
Hihintuan.
Two of our 5 best stops on the road to Hana are coming up close together. The first is the K&A Arboretum. It's a free attraction and a great place to see a collection of tropical plants. Even if the idea of looking at plants doesn't excite you, I'm sure you'll enjoy the rainbow eucalyptus trees that we mentioned earlier in our drive.
Mamaya, babalik.
Also interesting is the golden-stemmed bamboo, ginger with its bright red flowers, papaya and hibiscus. But if you are interested in the plant life, there's much, much more. We only need to spend about a half an hour here to get a really good impression. The trail is flat, and even the Pi'ina'ao stream flows alongside. Level terraces that the Arboretum sits on were constructed by Hawaiian farmers many centuries ago for taro cultivation. If you continue along the trail, it'll lead you to taro ponds. We're going to follow around this small headland, and then I'll let you know where to stop.
5.
The second of our 5 best stops comes up within a minute of driving away from the Arboretum, and we had a little preview if we stopped at the view from Kamahina Park. This is the turnoff to the small Hawaiian town of Ke'anei, which sits on the unusually flat Ke'anei Peninsula. This scenic little place is home to taro farming, lumpy volcanic outcrops that jump up from the ocean, a century-and-a-half-old church, and it was once the scene of a terrible disaster. We should turn off for a quick trip to Ke'anei that will take us right to the shorefront by the ocean. I'll tell you the stories about Ke'anei if we turn in. When we leave the peninsula, or if we decide not to stop, we'll have the opportunity to pull in at a panoramic lookout that gives us an excellent view of the peninsula from above. Hey, want to get your hands on a coconut? I can almost guarantee that there will be coconuts along the rocks by the pounding surf if we turn in. I'll point out the parking for the Arboretum first. Parking for the Arboretum is on the left at the tight hairpin corner. You see that sharp corner after we pass the entrance to the YMCA camp? Please don't park at the Y. Use the small pullouts on the corner after that one. You'll see them, and the trail starts on the opposite side of the road. 30 minutes ought to be enough to take a good look around and get some pretty pictures. And when we leave, the turn to the Ke'anei Peninsula comes up almost immediately to the left, and there's only a small sign. And remember to turn me back on before we leave the Arboretum.
Diyan ka magpapark, tapos maglalakad ka doon. Hindi ba doon? Dito ba?
This road to the left here is the turn to Ke'anei.
In one.
Talaga yung Hana eh.
Coming up quickly is a bridge over the Palahulu stream that sits over Ching's Pond, or the Blue Sapphire Pool. Ching's is a popular swimming hole, especially for the locals. If you want to go to the pond, the easiest way is from a trail about 50 feet past the bridge beside a big tree, but it's a bit of a rough trail.
Nagpasan niya siguro.
Turn left.
Siguro puntahan niyo.
I absolutely love the view over Ke'anei from this great lookout. Those square plots of land, those are the taro fields. From here, we have a great appreciation of the black rock left behind by the lava flow that created this flat peninsula. Just so you know, we're about halfway to Hana now.
Oo, malapit na.
44 minutes na. Diba?
Ano? Wasak yung bahay na nabagyo ba yun?
Yan, nandito yung halfway to Hana eh. Ito.
Ayan, halfway to
Picture
Hana,
tayo.
magpicture tayo dyan.
Saglit. Sarado pa. Picture tayo. We are here halfway to Hana, so we stop because it says halfway. So we're gonna take a picture of the house.
I've been more like an hour and 10 minutes from now.
Miles na lang.
15? Pero 45 minutes pa.
Kasi nga, mabagal yung takbo.
Just past the fruit stand ahead is the road that leads into Wailua town.
Ay, school pala
Now,
yan.
there's no real reason for us to go into the town. It's not that the locals are not friendly, they just aren't enthusiastic about uninvited visitors. The town is a small collection of houses, and many of the people work in taro farming. From the road into the town, we can see a partial but obstructed view of the lower Waikani Falls. That is actually one of the largest waterfalls on the drive to Hana at 1,000 feet. But it's a little disappointing that we can't get the full view of the entire drop. I suggest we just keep going.
Okay.
Take a photo. On a clear day, it's an impressive view, but the mountain is often shrouded in clouds caused by trade winds blowing into the mountain from this side of the island. The warm, moist air is forced up to the colder temperatures, and of course, the result is the constant formation of clouds. The best opportunity to see a clear Haleakala is in the mornings before the trade winds build strength.
Galing, no? Sinasabi niya lahat. Worth it yung $9. Kasi you have a like navigator and all the
Kabalik
places
pa tayo
view.
meron. History naman siya.
You can
Ayun
see
na.
everything. Yung ba yun? Dapat parang hinto tayo.
At the next
kasi
bridge,
picture lang.
we'll see the Upper Waikani Falls, or by its nickname, Three Bears Falls. Upper Waikani Falls is one of the more famous waterfalls on the Hana Highway. This is a waterfall where it's actually better to have less water running over it than more. When the rate of flow of water is low, the falls appear as three distinct slim falls that line up from tallest to shortest. These are the Three Bears. When there's too much water going over the falls, it turns into just one big bear and kind of loses its uniqueness. We get a partial view of the falls if we drive slowly across the bridge. But for the best view, go over the bridge and park in the clearing about 100 yards on. Then walk back to the bridge for a better view. There's a short extension of the wall that juts out towards the falls from the bridge. Please be careful if you're going to climb onto the wall, as it's often wet and mossy.
Ayun
Access to
na,
the falls is down a steep,
Ayun, of course.
muddy, and a bit of a scary drop. Actually, I don't recommend doing it.
Ayan,
But
no?
walking to
That's
the bridge for a
trees,
better
no?
look, definitely worthwhile.
No parking.
Oo, no parking talaga dyan.
Diyan na.
Ayan, binidyo ko na lang. Oh, nice
Walang
balls.
Ano pa lang park doon?
The most common way to eat taro is when it's prepared as poi.
Tiyaro.
The taro is believed to have a direct ancestral connection to the Hawaiians. The legend says that the Hawaiian gods Waikea, the Sky Father, and Ho'ohuka Kalani, daughter to Papa, the Earth Mother, had a child. The first child was born ill and died only after a few days. They buried the child near the house, and a taro plant grew from the grave, and they named the taro plant Haloanaka. Their next son was born healthy and named him Haloa, after his elder brother. Haloa became the first generation of the Hawaiian people. Poi is made by mashing the baked or steamed taro into a runny purple liquid. Water is then added during the mashing again just before eating to achieve your preferred consistency. Poi can be described as 1, 2, or 3 fingers, depending on how many fingers you would have to use to eat it from a bowl. 1 finger is thick. 3 fingers, obviously, is runny. Traditional Hawaiian people believe that the spirit of Haloa is
They are
present
using
when
their
they
hands
eat
to
poi,
eat too, like
so
us.
all family arguments must be stopped during the meal. Even though other cultures eat taro, only Hawaiians make poi from it. The flavor is a bit of an acquired taste for non-Hawaiians, and I have to admit that after many attempts, I still can't say I really enjoy it. If you have an opportunity,
Pagkain.
you definitely need to give it a try for yourself.
Ano yun?
Parang
Soup?
ano? Taro di parang
Lugaw?
ubi siguro.
Oh, ube. Eh, di ba sarap yun?
Sabi,
Depende sa pagluto.
Kasi ni-smash daw di yun.
Ube nga yun. Last hour, ube.
A little update on our trip to Hana today. As you heard
Yeah,
me say,
kasi
we're a
tas yung
little
kulay
past
pa
the
parang
halfway point to
enchas.
Hana now. So far, we've only passed 2 of the must-stop places that I recommend. As you can imagine, we still have a lot to see.
Yung mga,
If
yung
we've
unang
made it
post,
here and it's not yet
ayusin
11
ninyo.
a.m., then we're making excellent time. So feel free to make as many stops as you like as I let you know what our choices are. If it's after lunch already, and we plan to go all the way to the Ohio pools at Kipahulu, and that is something we
Stop.
really should do, then let's just stick to the stops that are most recommended. I'm sure you've noticed we've been climbing for a while. We'll rise to 1,400 feet above the ocean before we start back down towards beach level. Beside one of the next bridges, we'll see a nice peaceful pond on our right. No need to stop, but I'm sure you'll see it from the passenger
1,400
side.
lang. Kaya pwede.
If we haven't stopped and
Ay,
walked to
kala ko
any of the swimming ponds so far,
Mas mataas to
this
siya.
will give us a close view of what they're like right from the car.
May panda.
Ito, may stop. Ay, eto oh. Yan yung ano.
Ito ba?
Paano kang hihinto sa gitna ng...
Diyo tayo sa gitna. No need to stop, sabi niya eh.
Ano mga ganun lang din. Parang Pilipinas na lagi basa.
Wala nang ulan eh.
Hindi, tsaka hamog. Nasa taas tayo eh.
Bagyo eh.
Ang magat, hamog. Malapit na tayo sa pula. Sa salita na yan. Yan na. Ano kayo sasabihin niya? Naabutan na natin yung kotse.
Nawala
Coming
isa.
up on the next bridge, we see the rusty remains of an old winch attached to the bridge wall. Just past the bridge, there's a short length of irrigation ditch that runs beside the road on the passenger side. Think about how long we've been driving for since we left Central Maui, where the plantations were established. That should give us a new respect for the huge scale of the project. And the man who led the construction was not even a trained engineer. The East Maui Irrigation Company is still in existence and still responsible for the diversion of water to Central Maui plantations and ranches, as it has for well over a century. Along with the ditch system, EMI owns some 68,000 acres of land through East Maui. When we see the area closures, so people don't interfere with the ditches, and also so that no one gets hurt on their property.
Isa lang.
Bakit yun na may dulo? O yun lang yung mismong black ano?
Black Sun, hindi pa yung dulo.
So,
Tapos
gaano
ang
pa
black
kalay
sand.
dulo?
40 minutes pa yun. Yun na yung mga 7 pools.
So,
Yung
pagkayari
may
natin dito, dun na muna tayo
Doon
sa
na muna,
dulo.
para hindi
Para
natin
pabalik
mabit yung
na lang
crowd,
tayo.
pabalik,
Kasi
saka
mahirap pag
dadaan.
maraming tao.
Oo. Tsaka
mahirap
marami
na,
tayong oras
matraffic
doon.
na.
Yung pinaka-importante. Yung isa sa dalawa sa pinaka-top yun. Dalawa na yung top 2. Tapos hindi ka nag-aapura masyado doon.
We're at
Ngayon,
another state wayside park and rest area. This time, Pua'aka'a Park.
ano daw?
You'll find washrooms on the left as we come around the corner.
Mahirap sabihin.
There are a couple of nice smaller waterfalls and some good swimming holes here that can be accessed from the car park, though the trails are often muddy in places. We should probably keep going through here without stopping for more than a washroom break, as we have some bigger locations still in front of us. One interesting thing about this park, though, is that it's a favorite place to hang out for locals from Hana. I guess when they want to get away from the hustle and bustle of tourists and many other places are crowded, then this is a good place to be, because visitors like to just drive on by.
Oh, may maliit na pulse.
Ito.
Ay, restroom lang yan.
Tapos na sa taas. Stop tayo ng stop.
Hindi, kakaihin na naman natin.
Mamaya.
Doon.
pauwi. So, alam na natin mga stop pauwi.
Eh, sasabihin din naman niya sa'yo.
Yeah.
Kasi mayroon naman navigator.
Kung wala ka navigator, wala na.
Hindi mo na alam. That's all.
Dire-diretso ka lang.
Regional communities along the road to Hana, and each of them is very small, some not offering any services at all. We're coming up to another one of those very soon. Nahiku this time. Nahiku is definitely a place where people come to get away from it all, and the locals sometimes look surprised that a visitor would drive down through the rainforest to explore. At the end of the 10-minute drive is a nice, small oceanfront park with views along the coast from a headland. If you're interested, we can drive down, but the final walk to the beach takes about another 5 minutes after parking. In the early 1900s, this area around Nahiku was the site of the Nahiku Rubber Company. This is the only commercial rubber company ever to have been established in the United States. At its peak, some 350,000 rubber trees were planted here. You'll still see the occasional one on the side of the road, but most have been overgrown by more aggressive species now. The rubber venture failed within 20 years because they were unable to produce rubber of a high enough quality. This once busy community has remained relatively quiet since then.
Maliit na po.
Hindi siya nagsabi.
Eh hindi, wala namang katuturan eh. Sabi niya, oy ayun oh. Ganda yun ah.
Who owned a home on 63 acres here.
What?
That was George Harrison of the Beatles, no less.
Wow.
He moved to Nahiku in the early 1980s, somewhat in search of solitude. But even here, his privacy was invaded by eager fans hoping to catch a glimpse of him. The most notable incursion was when a woman ate pizza and did laundry in his house. Fortunately, he wasn't there at the time, and she was arrested. The woman spent 4 months in jail waiting for her hearing and pleaded no contest to misdemeanor charges. Perhaps it was a prophetic incident, as just 7 days later, George Harrison was stabbed while fighting off a knife-wielding intruder in London. The stab wound caused his lung to collapse, but he was able to fully recover. George Harrison eventually passed away in 2001 from cancer.
Beatles. Daming ganyan sa balok. Kaya saging.
Baka nila ano yan. Must picture.
Eh, syempre, yung mga hindi nakakita ng bamboo, galing sa Amerika. Tayo, hindi daming bamboo. Bayog lang sa atin. Daming ganyan sa atin.
When you go to Nahiku, you'll come out to the same place on the highway.
Ang sabi niya, saglit lang.
Ito sa town.
Kabilis.
Naikot.
Access for the town.
Back in 1926. Before that, it was a bit more of a trail, I guess. While the bridges were made of concrete, the road was constructed with dirt and cinders. Considering the amount of rain that falls on this side of the island, it's easy to believe that the potholes here were horrendous, and that making the journey back then was far less comfortable than it is today. It wasn't until as late as 1958 that the road was fully paved to control the constant pothole problem. As you've seen, much of the cause for slowdowns on this road is the one-lane bridges. I'm sure we've been following the proper etiquette as we've approached them.
Yes.
Though they're all thoroughly checked and maintained, Some of the bridges are definitely nearing the end of their lifespan. But many locals and outsiders strongly oppose the idea of replacing the one-lane bridges with two-lane bridges. This is one of the ways the whole "it's about the journey" idea manifests. The argument is that it's the slow corners and one-lane bridges that provide the character of the drive, and even the way of life in Hana and the surrounding area. If better, faster, two-lane bridges were constructed, then people will speed through faster. Volumes of traffic will increase, and the character will be lost. Well, as someone who does this drive every day, I understand the point of view of those folks. The way funding formulas work, it's almost impossible to get significant federal government money towards rebuilding one-lane bridges. But two-lane bridges would qualify. You know what? Let's not think too much about that. You should complete the drive, and then you can decide for yourself whether it's just right the way it is.
Ay, pag dalawang bridge. Kasi two-way. Mahirap pag isa eh. Kung ipapan naman ng government.
Artisan goods, including pottery and koa wood bowls. The smoked fish stand is often closed at least 2 days a week. If it's open and you're feeling like a snack, try the generous tacos of smoked fish, chicken, or beef.
Wow.
Also worth a try are the Kalua pig sandwiches. Oh, when the barbecue's open, the beef skewers are excellent. If you're interested in stopping, I'll give us some warning, as we'll have to slow down to turn across traffic to access the stands. There's a sign for the Nahiku Marketplace just a couple minutes ahead. I'll point it out.
Maraming ang bridge. One-lane bridge. Ayan o.
Now, I'm not sure how much exploring we've done around Maui so far. As we drive into the different areas, I'm sure you'll be at least a little amazed at how much variation there is in the landscape. If you venture further south of Kihei and Wailea, there's a really popular sandy beach there called Makena.
Well,
The area as we approach Makena sits in what's called the rain shadow created by Haleakala, which rises to 10,000 feet above us. That means that the usual trade wind flow causes almost all rainfall to be dumped on this side of Haleakala. Makena is hot, dry, arid, and harsh. And you'll even see prickly pears growing beside the road. You don't need me to point out that the road to Hana is dominated by lush jungle-like rainforest. Typically, this area will receive around 12 feet of rain annually. Yeah, 12 feet. The straight line distance from here to the prickly pears is about 35 miles. But the giant volcano that separates them makes the two places about as different from each other as they could possibly be.
Coconut, ito. Titinda ng coconut. Hindi naman tayo masyadong ano sa coconut. Lagi tayong makakain ng coconut tsaka drinks ng coconut. Sa atin matatamis ang coconut sa Pilipinas. Parehas lang. Lalo na kami noon, yung puno ng coconut sa bahay lang namin mismo. Nalalaglagan ng coconut, butik na mabasag yung bunga.
Takot yun, ha?
Oo dun pa mismo sa daanan. Naabutan mo ba yun? Yung hindi pa pinuputo lahat ang mga coconut. Sa may mismong gate, si mama nga nabagsakan sa likod eh.
Buti hindi siya
Bata-bata pa kasi siya noon. Shell sail.
Our next must stop, Wainapanapa State Park, is coming up in about 7 or 8 minutes past the Nahiku Coffee Shop.
Malapit na.
But I'm going to tell you about it now and then point out the turn as we get close to it. This single park has contorted lava rock formations, a natural
this
sea
is
arch,
the one.
a blowhole, and a beautiful black sand
This
beach.
is the one.
You
that's
can
going
swim
last
here
time.
too, but the water is often very rough, so please only enter the water if conditions are calm and within your abilities. There are caves here that have historical significance too. According to legend, this is the site where the cruel King Ka'akea brutally murdered his wife, Popoalea, who was hiding from him in the caves. It was said that he saw her reflection in the water of the cave, and that's how her hiding place was found. There's an annual natural phenomenon of millions of tiny red shrimp that hatch here in the spring that turn the water red. It's supposed to signify the bloodied water of the king's murderous act. You'll want to spend at least 30 minutes, maybe even an hour or more exploring around Wainapa Napa. The trails are really well marked. Unfortunately, rock destabilization has occurred at the caves, and they're now closed due to safety hazard concerns.
May picture
Always
lang sa
obey
labas.
these closures,
No.
and there are loads of other
Pwede ka
things to
pumunta
see
doon.
around
Sa
the
loob
beach.
ng cave?
I'll let you know when the turn is
Sabi
coming
it's
up
closed.
after the Heiau and
Area?
Gardens turn.
No,
Just a reminder that if we are not currently holding a reservation today, we'll have to visit Wainapa Napa another time.
No, sinabi na nga niya the cave is closed because of the not stable rock. Di sa labas lang ng cave, mabagsakan ka pa ng bato. Wala akong nakitang ospital. Hospital sa baba pa. Sinasabi niya, pistaco. Coconut bread. Bread.
All right, who's hungry?
Oh,
The
ito na yung
Nahiku
mga
Marketplace
kainan.
is coming up just around the corner. It's a popular stop, and I recommend taking the first parking space we find.
Nahiku.
I hate to be the bearer of bad
Yeah.
news, but the Nahiku Marketplace is one of the locations where many vendors have not been operating due to the effects of COVID. Here we'll find the Nahiku Coffee Shop and some other selections. And just so you know, my mother-in-law would never forgive me if I didn't tell you to look for the toasted coconut vendor as well. Like anybody needs encouragement to get toasted coconut, right? And over at the Tea Gallery, you may find local artisan items like pottery and koa wood bowls. Ethical dilemma in Hawaii coming up before we reach Wainapa Napa. It used to be a popular stop at the Blue Pool and Blue Angel Falls. An older guidebook had started to recommend the location for visitors, and numbers increased. However, in order to access the Blue Pool, visitors must cross private land to get there. Though the pool is on public land, the property owner decided he no longer wanted people going through his private property to access it. This led to some very ugly encounters. Confused visitors would pay for parking on a neighboring property, but then they were confronted with no trespassing or kapu signs, and sometimes even a hostile landowner chasing them away. In Hawaii, public access to the shoreline is a big deal. But while the beach and shoreline are public places, private land is most definitely private. In my opinion, there are many beautiful waterfalls and pools along our travels today. So let's just avoid any potential conflict and not try to go there. But there are two other places that might be of interest to you on Ulaino Road where visitors are welcome. A heiau is a place of worship built on a flat platform of volcanic rock, and this one dates back to the 14th century. In fact, it was the largest in Hawaii, covering 3 acres. Pi'ilanahale Heiau and Kahanu Gardens offer an opportunity to see the remains of this massive hand-built cultural icon. And those gardens are a really nice bonus, too. The Heiau is open every day except Sundays. On the same road is the Hana Lava Tube. Lava tubes are formed when, during a lava flow, the sides and eventually the top of the flow actually harden into rock, while inside, the hot lava keeps flowing. Think of it like a natural pipe. When the lava stops flowing and drains out of the tube, it leaves behind a hollow lumen, which is just like a cave, and you can go inside it. If you've never seen a lava tube before, this is your opportunity. Both of the lava tube and the heiau do have admission fees to visit. I'll point out the turns for Ulano Road and for Wainapa.
Abot na.
And that's the access road for both of these places. Now, I don't consider these to be must-do stops, but if we have a little time and we're interested, it's quite a nice bonus to visit. My suggestion is that if it's later than 1:30 p.m. right now, we might find it a little bit tight for time to do an additional stop here and complete the road to Hana and also return in daylight. The entry road for Wainapa is just another minute past Ulano Road.
Ayan na. Palapa.
Basta na.
Malapit na. Resto. Ano ba yan? Umuulan naman.
The first turn to the left leads to the Hana Airport. If you are rich and or famous and you don't feel like driving the Hana Highway, then you can charter a flight by air taxi to the airport here, since there aren't any scheduled flights to or
may
from
airport,
Hana.
yes.
One of the best things about flying here, other than not getting car sick, is that you can get a great view of the Pi'ilanihala Heiau from the sky. As you can imagine, it's actually much better than seeing it from ground level.
Yan na.
Then the next turn to the left will take us into Wainapa Park. There's a really good sign for the park, so don't worry, you can't miss it. I especially love how jungly it is at the turn-in, complete with thick hanging Tarzan vines.
Oo. Pili ko rin siguro yung sinusundan natin eh. Unless unahin nila 7 posts.
Sa oras
In a
tayo
quarter
rito.
mile, turn left.
Alam din yan.
Oo, meron ditong ano,
Wala man siguro.
signal.
Kasi lang na on ko na kanina. Ano?
Wainapa State na yun.
Turn left.
Wala doon pa.
In a half mile, turn left.
Oh, ito na pala siya. Ocean, may mga ano, bumps.
Now please go slowly as we approach the park
May mga
area.
bumps.
The road is residential, and kids and pets and even
Yeah,
baby
dahan-dahan.
pigs, according to the sign, can be on the road sometimes. Keep following the road down, and then we'll be able to turn left towards the car park and the black sand Pailoa Beach. When we get to the car park, there are excellent signs to point us towards the different things that are worth exploring on foot. This park has camping and even cabin facilities here. The cabins are popular and advanced reservations are needed. When we get to the yellow gate, turn left to go to the car park that's closer to the caves.
Residential area.
Nakalagay children's playing on the side of the road. Dapat mag-ingat talaga mag-drive dito. Hindi mabilis. Rough road pa eh.
We want to go left here before the yellow
Turn
gate.
left.
Wainapa. Pinag-leler. Ayan, titingnan kasi reservation. Hello. Hi, morning. ID for David.
Yeah. Ganda naman.
David, perfect. So your parking lot is going to be straight ahead. Just follow the road all the way to the top.
All the way
And
to
the
the
right
top.
side of the parking lot, there's the bathrooms and the showers. Right below the parking lot is where the beach access is.
Thank you so much. Ang galing mo yung ano mo.
Find a parking space and let's get out of this car and go for a walk. We'll see the black sand beach and the sea arch from the lookout. Follow the beach trails to explore the shore and also to find the blowhole. Black sand beaches can seem like they're almost dirty from a distance, but once you get onto the sand and put your feet in the water, you'll understand that it's not dirty at all. It really is just an amazing black-colored sand. It's formed by a phenomenon caused by the basalt in lava. As hot lava enters the water, sometimes it'll explode into tiny basalt fragments, and on rare occasions, you get enough fragments to create an entire black sand beach. When you're ready to leave, go back to the highway.
Hey, sunod mo na lang yun.
Ito.
O, ayan pala, sa tabi ng...
O, doon. Nakasunod. Isa ng ulang ungas. Kalahati. Pwede ba yan?
I don't know. Pag ganun, palikong ganun. Pasaksak.
Site for Hana, a place that some say is the most Hawaiian town in Hawaii. We'll see the school coming up on our left, so be sure to obey the school zone speed
Bata.
limit. Being a visitor doesn't count as an excuse to the local police.
Kapahuli yung red.
Though it's very sleepy and relaxed seeming here,
Red Sea.
people do have to make a living here too. One notable business here is Hana Tropicals.
Kasi ano,
Farmers and sellers of exquisite tropical plants. And we'll see the small sign for Hana Tropicals Farm on our right just ahead. They have over 150 species of orchids, and they can ship you a live plant that's just about to bloom. They also ship arrangements of cut flowers, including ginger, heliconias, and anthurium. Maybe you could order some to be delivered as you get home from Maui as a little reminder of your visit here. That is when you have to face the real world again.
Ay, eskwela.
Hana Tropicals has self-guided tours through their farm tucked away in the jungle. If you love beautiful tropical flowers, you'll enjoy visiting here. Now we're on our way back. Though keep in mind, they close at 4
Sabi, stop
p.m.
eh.
Stop kung may pedestrian. Wala mo eskwela ngayon. Holiday. May town dito ah.
Hana Maui.
Ito na yung Hana.
Yeah, ito na ang taon ng Hana.
This is it, pansit.
Siyempre, ano naman gusto mong kalaki ng taon ng Hana? Eh, Basa Mountain. Hindi nga may town. Kahirap din siguro sila, ano, lagi-lagi na lang may tourist. Hindi na wala sila.
Coming up ahead, we can turn in towards the bay for a look around. From the bay, if we feel energetic, we can take a walk around the headland to see the cave where the most influential queen in Hawaii's history was born in the 18th century. I'll point out some of the most notable places as we drive in. A good stop in town where we can learn more about life in Hana is the Hana Cultural Center. Our alternative choice is to bypass the town area and keep following this highway towards Kipahulu without stopping. That'll take us about another 45 minutes to drive to Kipahulu, but I do recommend it. 2 of our must-see places are still ahead of us.
Okay, pahulod siya.
No Red Sea.
Hindi.
Seven Falls.
Pulse. Kipahulo, yun na yung 7. Yun na yung trail, yun na yung park.
It's actually
Yes,
a
you're
good
right.
little diversion that takes not even 10 minutes to see. I'll point out the turn again on the way back.
Meron naman mamaya, pabalik. Nandun na mismo yung stop, di mo na kailangan mag-left. Umuulan,
Flies out
yan
of the field.
ang lava.
I know this looks like it might have had some historical significance, but sorry to say, it doesn't. The rocks are plowed up out of the fields to make planting and grazing easier. The farmers piled the rocks like this so they were easy to
Watch
store and
our children
access
now.
if they wanted to use them to build walls. I guess that they're stacked like
Saging,
this
oh,
just because the
plantation.
farmers were very neat and tidy. However,
Banana
you will
plantation,
notice
yeah.
that in one field, they have built up stones into kind of a
Dito,
shrine
banana chip.
and placed a white statue of the Virgin Mary on it.
Asan?
If we've been watching the mile marker signs, you would have noticed that the mile
Yun
markers
yung Virgin
have suddenly
Mary ba yun?
changed.
Sabi?
We're in the mid
Bakit
40s
hindi naman?
and the numbers are now counting
Ubo yan
down.
eh.
31
This is
na.
because technically the road has
Halo-halo.
changed.
Hindi
We're on a
pa halo.
county road now and not the Hana Highway anymore. Now, it really doesn't make much difference to us. We'll keep following the same road all the way to Kipahulu. The road has straightened out a little bit more since we were deep in the rainforest. From here to Kipahulu, though, it'll become winding and narrow in many parts
Be careful
again.
daw.
So let's quickly talk about what's ahead.
Yeah.
I'll suggest stopping at a beautiful waterfall just ahead. Then we'll continue on directly to Ohio Gulch at Kipahulu, or it's also known as the Seven Sacred Pools. After that, I suggest we turn around and make our way back to Central Maui, and I'll have different commentary for the way back.
Different daw. Wait ka. Tayo mainit.
Yeah, iba naman sasabihin niya. Hindi pa ulit
Sa'yo?
Ha? Yun, sulit na $9.
Ibang tayo na.
Mga may kumakausap sa atin. Tour guide nga siya. Ang hirap naman yan. Ang lakas ng ulan. Sana huminto na pagdating natin din sa ano, para pag nag-hike. Ang hirap mag-hike ng ganyan, no? Ang sarap. Hindi mahirap mag-hike yan, madulas. Ano tayo bagal maglakad.
Ano lang naman.
Ay!
Hindi naman bundok na.
That's
Patag
good.
lang.
Akala ko naman, ha-hiking mo.
Ibig sabihin ng hike lalakarin.
No, akala ko bundok na mataas, matarik.
And a tree can
mango
keep
tree.
giving
Man,
fruit
kasi laki,
for up
mas
to
malaki pa
40
yung mango
years.
tree namin sa harapan
A
ng
tree
bahay
this
namin.
size will have so
Niloko
much
mo
fruit,
kami eh.
much of it'll end up just rotting on the ground.
Wala namang bunga. Ay. Ayan, bridge. Pakaraming bridge. Tanggalin mo nga yung mga tulo ng ulan. Thank you.
Mga bahay din.
Oo, mga bahay, mga ano yan. Dito nakatira, ayan, eskwelahan, o, nakita mo? Slow down, watch for children. Kahirap din nila, ano? Ay, dahan-dahan.
Ano pala lang?
Wala naman tayong hinahabol. Bagalan mo naman ng kaunti, nasa ano ka eh. Mga bahayan eh. Kapag preno agad dyan.
Just a few minutes, we'll be coming up on our second last must-stop location on our tour on the Hana Highway, the Wailua Falls. These are considered by many visitors to be the most attractive of the many waterfalls encountered on this drive.
Kasi,
I'll point out the falls as we approach. The setting is classic and picturesque. Surrounding fragrant rainforests provide a beautiful frame for viewing the falls. The total drop for water through here is 200 feet, but the
Uy,
falls
mataas.
themselves plunge about 80 feet. There's such a lovely, refreshing mist given off to bring all your senses into play. The only downside to Wailua
Big
Falls
crossing.
is just how popular they are. And
Hindi
so
nakapalong
often there's a
baboy
crowd
nila
here.
dito.
It's nice to take the path down to the falls for the best luck. The trail can be a little bit wet and mossy, thus slippery, so you'll want to take care. If you know Hawaii quite well, you may know that there's another Wailua Falls on Kauai. Those falls were first made famous by being in the opening credits for the 1970s TV series
Ay, ikaw na pala
Anatosi
yun.
Island.
Ayun na, maraming sasakyan. Siguro.
The next bridge that we'll cross is the Paihi Bridge. That earthquake back in October 2006 damaged the old bridge, and it was declared dangerous and even impassable by authorities. Residents from this point on were cut off from the rest of the island. You couldn't get through on the Pi'ilani Highway or on the south end of the island because boulders blocked the road. And you couldn't cross this bridge either. So for many of the residents who lived from here further out, if they could, they would drive or walk to the other side of the bridge, walk across the damaged bridge, and then swap to another car they'd keep parked on the Hana side of the bridge. By early December, or after just 6 weeks, a temporary steel bridge had been constructed and placed, so the traffic flow could return to normal and locals could go about their business. Of course, you can see the bridge is rebuilt now.
Napakahirap na pala nito. Ito pala dapat talaga ang unahin dahil mahirap ang daan. Pag magabi na dyan, nakatakot. Ayan na.
Our next bridge coming up crosses the Honoleva Stream, which feeds the Wailua Falls. This is our 4th must-stop location. Pull off into the parking area immediately crossing the bridge. You'll see vendors selling crafts and trinkets in the parking area, and it looks a little chaotic. But everyone manages to get through. After we park, walk back to the bridge for a nice view and a photo. I sure hope there's lots of water flowing down the falls today.
Ayun o, doon ang parking. Ito yung poso. Ayan o.
Park natin din.
Oo, ayan doon. Tsaka magpa-park.
Doon na sa kabila.
Ayan o, doon sa tabi ng kotse o.
Picture lang tayo.
Saglit lang.
Yan lang sa'yo, ha?
So thick we can't look up. As the trade winds blow in from the northeast, the air is laden with water vapor, and it's really quite warm. When the wind hits the volcano, it's quickly forced upwards many thousands of feet. As we go higher, the temperature gets colder, and the warm, wet air turns into clouds. The clouds become too heavy with condensation, and of course, the rain falls. And as we've heard, the rain falls heavily and frequently on this side of Haleakala. Combine that with the fact that the volcanic rock is relatively soft and the wind and water erodes the rock down quickly in geological time, that is. Since the weather pattern repeats itself almost every day here, the streams dig deeper and deeper into the rock. Between the water and the trade winds, the forces of erosion carve out the deep scars in the mountain that we've had to drive through today. It makes for difficult driving, but the fantastic side is that it creates these many beautiful waterfalls that we've enjoyed. And it seems the pools aren't actually considered a uniquely sacred place by native historians, but they're still beautiful, and we'll just call them the Pools of Ohio. The idea of calling them the 7 sacred pools was actually dreamed up by a team of marketing people who wanted to get visitors to continue driving past Hana. And look at us, I guess it worked. A number of fairly major land and rock slides have led to the pools having their access restricted for long periods of time. Restoration work has been completed after the last 2-year closure. It may be possible to swim and wade in the pools, but it's not a guarantee. Understandably, given the history of slides and water surges here, NPS Parks officials always take the cautious approach and may close the pools for swimming at any time. At the very least, we can still get a nice view of the pools, and we should follow the trails to the coastline where the stream meets the ocean, viewed from an elevated bluff. And there's also the opportunity to walk some or all of the PPY Trail, which I'll explain up ahead.
Pool muna sa kaliwa, tapos balik ang PPY Trail.
Ano naman makikita sa PPY Trail?
Yung mga falls, maraming falls. At the same time, maraming mga bamboo.
Ando doon na rin pala sa isang location
Yun na yun, lahat na yun doon. Okay lang, 30 tapos. Sayang nga, hindi tayo 4 days na pala ngayon. Kasi na, kung pumunta tayo doon ng ano, tama lang ginawa natin kasi hindi tayo pagod na kahapon. Ayan.
The trail climbs uphill to an elevation of about 650 feet, which will get you breathing hard without being completely exhausted.
50 feet na.
Along the 4-mile loop, the trail passes through rainforests, and hikers are rewarded with many scenic views along the way.
Yo.
Partway along, you'll reach the Makihiku Falls,
Yo, may
but
falls
most
sa pala
people
doon.
will continue on to Waimoku Falls,
Waimoku.
the highlight of the hike.
Oh.
The falls drop 400 feet and are idyllic. And I also enjoy the peacefulness of the bamboo forest.
Yo.
You'll want to have some fairly
Hindi white
sturdy
talaga.
shoes for the hike if it's been raining. And it often is, then be prepared for a little mud on the trail. For some, this hike is the whole purpose of driving the road to Hana.
See?
Whether you choose to just check out the lower pools, or if you want to do the Pipivai Trail hike,
Boat.
absolutely
Boat.
certain you'll enjoy your visit here.
Kita lo oras tayo dito. Alauna. Aga pa.
Oo naman, dapat sulitin mo na, nandito ka na eh.
Kasi nakita na yun ay post. Saglit lang tayo bababa doon mamaya. Tapos Red Sea, tapos na.
Ba't pa tayo bababa? Tapos may picture na tayo dun. Eh,
Di ba?
ganun din naman yung
Sa
post na
bahay.
kita mo dito.
Hindi, para lang yung sa baba.
Oo eh. We'll see
Malapit lang
later.
naman.
5
Yan
minutes.
talagang
5 minutes.
highlight na. Yung Red Sea pa mamaya. Katabi na ng Hana yun.
Ito Hana na to, di ba? Anong katabi ng Hana?
As we go around the
Wait,
hairpin
wait.
turn, slow down after the
Ganda
bridge,
naman.
and you'll see a statue of the Virgin Mary on the passenger side.
Oo, ito
Oh,
pala.
Now,
nandyan
you don't
na
have to stop, but it's a bit
Ibaba
of
mo
an
yung,
unexpected oddity along our drive.
Window.
Tayo magdala ng towel.
Ito, love. Dahan-dahan. Oh, yan. Ayun pala, video meron sila sa... O, sige na. Ito, mababa na yung dagat. Ano na.
Point sa gitna.
Malapit na tayo. Ayun.
We're just about to arrive at the entrance. Please note that you are not allowed to stop on the bridge up ahead, so please don't. It causes chaos. Keep following along to where the entrance booth is at the car park.
In 1,000
You can get a
feet,
trail map
you
to
will
the
arrive at your
visitor center
destination.
To help you find your way around, but it's really quite easy. Sometimes there are even presentations by park staff, so it's worth asking if anything special is on.
Patay mo na yan.
The
Wala
easy
namang
trail
wala.
to the lower pools is just to the left of the visitor center. And finally, just a reminder that my tour does not keep going past Kipahulu. If you want to continue, then I will not have any commentary. Remember that travel on the Pi'ilani Highway contravenes the rental agreement with most companies. The
Yan
only
naman
other
7 pools,
attraction up ahead
parang
that you
lubak.
might want to see is the grave of Charles Lindbergh, the famous
Ito
aviator.
na nag-hide na.
The grave is at Ho'omau Church, just another couple of minutes further down the road. I'll point out the turn. When we leave, I'll have different stories and commentary for the way home.
Oh.
Enjoy your visit, and as is always the case in Hawaii, please take any valuables with you, or at least lock them away out of sight. Have fun, and remember to turn me back on when it's time to leave. I'll be back once we cross the bridge as we drive out.
Nasulat. National Park, Kahali Hulu. Saan tayo magbabayad? Ito na.
Yan na yung
Halekala National Park, Kipahulu. Meron tayong mask, diba?
Yan, ito sa
Ano yan? Pools of Orheo are closed. No
Ibig
swimming.
sabihin, hindi ka pwede mag-swimming. Pwede ka mag-picture.
Oh.
Yung 7 pools.
Bakit ba?
Natin to.
Malis ka dyan para meron tayong makita kung paano.
Unahin na natin tong Pipiwari Trail. Mamaya na sa...
Kasi 7 pools.
You are here. Ito. Babalik tayo doon. Unahin na natin to.
Ano?
Dito na lang kasi babalik
Sa
din naman
posta
tayo dito
muna,
eh.
Kasi sa baba naman pala
Oo,
yun.
bababa. Saan tayo nag-park kanina?
Let's go na.
You are here. Saan tayo?
Ayun na, parking. You see? See, parking.
Yun sa taas.
Ayun. Ayun o.
Restroom nandito. Kipahalo.
Halika na, sana sa taas at nang mabilis na tayo. Yan ang makikita daw namin sa taas.
Nabidyohan mo yun? Nabidyohan mo yun.
Tsaka ito. Yan.
Let's go!
Okay.
To the park.
Na.
PPY Trail.
PPY Trail. Ito yung 7 pools. Nakita ko na kanina sa daan to eh. Ano? Putik-putik naman. Oh no. Katakot yan.
May namatay pala.
Man, child swept over the falls.
Oh no.
They died? Swept lang naman sabi. Hindi naman sinabi namatay. No diving.
No died. No died.
No
Ayun naman
diving.
pala eh. Nakasulat.
Meron naman trail nga eh. Di
Ay,
syempre nakaturo
unahin na.
kung saan.
Unahin natin yung ano. Yan pala yung inaano doon sa
Nangitim na siya.
YouTube.
Oh.
PPY
Huwag kang
Trail.
mabilis kasi may mga tao sa harapan mo. Ayaw nga nila nakasama ka sa kanila. Kuala Point Trail.
Dito muna sa
Yung
pool. 0.5 mile lang. Dito lang.
O, dito
Unahin
na tayo
natin
sa
to.
Kuala Point Trail muna
Balik tayo.
tayo.
Para ano lang.
Pull up. Oreo na pala yan eh. Ohio,
Ito.
yan na yun eh.
Yan na nga yan.
That's what it said. Hollow fruit.
Is it?
Yeah, look at
Pineapple
it.
is like in the ground.
Yeah, it looks like a
Oh, nice.
This is hala fruits.
Are they eating that one or no?
No. It's not.
Oh no. Sarado na. Danger clip na.
I know.
Oh, that's it. Eh bakit lubak? It look like lubak-lubak.
Oh, tama. Ito na yung lahat.
Okay. This is it. Pansit. Sabi ko sa'yo, lubak-lubak yung tubig eh. Mud eh. Not even beautiful.
Kasi lang, lang.
It's not even beautiful yung tubig.
Ikan talaga. Huwag ka na muna mag-video.
Bakit ba? Hindi pa ba pwedeng tignan dito? Pangit. Putik-putik. It's ugly. Hindi ka naman pala talaga pwedeng maligo eh, lab. Huwag kang umano dyan.
Huwag ka muna kasi mag-video.
Ayan o, nakita mo. O, sige.
sila nagpupuntahan, no? Alas 2 na. Inuna kasi nila yung mga stop eh.
Pati nagsasalita na yata yun.
Yung mga dilaw naman.
Ah, kaya pala.
Pagkaya na, magagalaw. Kaya dilaw naman tinamaan niya.
Kaya pala sabi ko, tinamaan na yung mga pula. Hindi na magsasalita. Sabi mo, hindi mo uubusin.
If you've taken a look at a map of Maui, you can see that Haleakala National Park extends areas that made up the park. The first, of course, was the crater area at the top of Haleakala. But the other two were actually on the Big Island. The Kilauea volcano, which is the area that is still currently active, and parts of Mauna Loa, one of the two giant dormant volcanoes on the island. The vision for the new park was that it would be a place to be enjoyed by the people of the United States and the preservation and protection of nature within its boundaries. No doubt you've seen that the pleasure derived from the park extends far beyond just the citizens of the U.S. Visitors from all over the world marvel at this wondrous place.
Nakahike na tayo.
In 1960, it was decided that it
That's
made
good.
more
This
sense
is a
to
good
administer Haleakala and the Big Island
Oh,
Park
yun ang
separately.
asawa ko.
So, the Hawaii
Mayroon ka
Volcanoes
mamaya.
National Park was designated, and Maui Park stood alone. Since even before 1960, more areas have been added to the park.
Baka
The
maano
Kibarulu
si
Valley was
YouTube
added in
nito.
1951, which created the summit to Ocean Continuum. The Ohio area where we just
Dito
were
tayo
was
sa
added in
Huli-Huli Chicken.
1969, and even more coastal area has been added since.
Eh, lulutuin pa naman yun eh,
Is
no?
that the areas
Kaya parang
inside the
gutom na
park
tayo nun.
be protected as wilderness. The park
Parang
currently
walang
stands
signal,
as more than
walang
30,000
malapit lang doon.
acres of preserved land.
Nasa Hana
Sana
mismo yun.
merong signal ah.
Kaya nga doon na, sa Hana mismo yun eh. Malapit lang sa Hana yun talaga.
For anyone other than a 2-day trip, as it's
Oh,
just
2
over
days.
19 miles, with an overnight stay at the
90
Paliki
miles?
cabin
19.
inside the crater.
O, 19.
Then hikers join the Kaupo Trail, which passes through a gap in the mountain
Kaya
and
natin.
follows downhill switchbacks all the way down to the beach.
Aha.
It's
Hindi mo
hot
i-hike
and
ng
exposed,
isang
and it is
bisan.
just plain hard. Strong knees, back, and some will are required. Hikers reach ocean level.
Ano nakita dito?
So, mabala tita.
Hindi na. Kasi yan lang yung kanina eh. Mamatay min doon dapat na video ko sana siya. Hindi naman na kasi nagsasalita kasi Kupaloids babalik. Iba na yung sinasabi niya.
Sasabihin niya yan dapat ah.
He didn't even say.
Taas din pala yun.
But yeah, mataas yun yung pulse na.
Ito nga.
Ito yun eh. Binababaan tapos yung...
Ang picture naman daw.
Aha. Tsaka anong tawag yan? Walang parkingan. Ay, meron pa natin.
Pinicture na natin kanina. Di ba? Bumaba tayo.
Ayan. Oh, mas mataas yun.
Ang picture na natin kanina. Di
Mas
ba?
mataas. Oh, yan na yun.
May mga naliligo nga. Oh.
Baka yun yung nililiguan nung sinasabi ko sa'yo na mga nag-hike. Di ba sabi ko sa'yo meron nililiguan na maganda. Baka yun.
Mas malinis ko. Dadaan ng dalawa din.
Ayun, yung pinuntahan natin, love eh. Sa baba, yung clip na yan, oh.
Pwedeng tingnan yan. Mahulog tayo.
Oh, wag mong tignan. Ako lang.
In this area,
Ayan.
the Helio Ko'eloa
Oh, yun,
Memorial
yun,
Cross
ganito,
was
oh.
erected to honor a native Hawaiian who was one of the first Catholic priests in the area. Unfortunately, the cross is not able to be seen from the road. But let me tell you the story. Father Ko'eloa was born here on Maui. Ko'eloa died in
We're
1846.
in the Chines. Magaswerte ng may bahay dyan, oh. Overlooking mo araw-araw yung ano. Ay, may homeless na. Dagat overlook.
If it can be seen, it's to the right of the Mauna Kea peak. If you look off to the right along this next stretch of road, we should be able to see at least the peak of Mauna Kea, so long as it's a reasonably clear day.
Yun pala yung Big Island. Sabi lang, ano, dagat.
They're an introduced species brought to Maui during the 1800s to control rat populations in the sugarcane plantations. Based on recommendations from Jamaican sugarcane farmers, 72 mongooses were brought to the Big Island and then bred and shipped to the other islands. Although Lanai and Kauai are thought to be free of mongoose, the rat eradication experiment with mongoose was a dismal failure. The mongoose proved to have little impact on the rat population since they hunt during the day, whereas the rat is active at night. Not only that, but the mongoose also developed a taste for live birds and bird eggs. I've seen a lot of ponds and waterfalls today, but if you want to squeeze one more in, this is a good one. This is a freshwater pond surrounded by black lava rock. It has a waterfall at one end and opens into the ocean at the other. Turtles can sometimes be seen feeding on the algae in the pond.
No trespass.
The trail is just on the other side of the next bridge if you want to take a look.
Trail na ilang oras daw na hike? Nakain kami dyan. Huli chicken. Ito yata yung ano, Catholic Church na sinasabi. Ito na yung Hana.
Fagan is considered to have saved Hana from economic ruin. He had an interesting story. Born the son of a millionaire banker, Fagan was an important figure in the expansion of Major League Baseball to the west coast of the USA. He acquired the San Francisco Seals of the Pacific Coast League. You've got one of their jerseys, don't you? He then greatly increased the salaries of the players and drew the biggest attendance to watch a minor league team. He was a man who had the attention of sports writers and the media. In Hana, the main industry from the mid-1800s was sugar plantations. But these were rapidly failing, with only one of 6 plantations still in business by the 1940s. Outside of his baseball life, Paul Fagan had experience. Flying the team from Oakland was the first time a commercial flight had landed on an island other than Oahu. His baseball team trained at the Hotel Hana Resort in the shadow of the hill containing Pele's bones. The reporters sent back stunning pictures and stories to the newspaper on the mainland. He arranged for his team to play a preseason 5-game series against the New York Giants at Honolulu Stadium.
This is Tony's place.
Unfortunately, the venture fizzled with...
To see.
Very nice. Our first place to pull over for a great view is coming up on our left. This is Koki Beach, and from here we get to see across to Alau Island, notable by its coconut tree perched on top. Kind of like a bad hair day. Pull in just past the sandy part of the beach for a closer look. It is definitely worth a photo. There are 2 versions of Hawaiian legend about the island. One states that this is the place where the demigod Maui pulled the Hawaiian Islands up from the bottom of the ocean with his magic hook that connected to the heavens. The other legend is that Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, broke the earth open from the Kaiwi o Pele Hill and created Alau Island and the channel between here and there. If you get in the right position, we'll also be able to see a sea arch in the rock outcrop.
Ayan na kami sa Koki Island. Koki Island. Look at that. Ayan, ganda-ganda kaya. Sabi mo, ayan, nakaganda-ganda. Ayan, o, tignan mo, o. Di ka kuhain mo yung stand. Ganda, o. Koki Beach. Galing maglangoy ng mga yan. Yun na yata yung Black Beach eh. Parang yun yun o, yung mayroong gold. Yun na yata yun. Katabi lang to, kabilang side.
Agos ha.
The Queen really had no choice but to concede to the superior power of the U.S. military.
Twin Falls.
She didn't have the firepower to remove the Committee of Safety, whose actions were essentially backed by the suspiciously timely arrival of the Marines. Remember, a similar thing had happened with the British 50 years earlier, but the British gave power to sugar plantation. And so, the Kingdom of Hawaii was officially ended. Just on 100 years after the islands first came together under one ruler, Hawaii was now a republic with its own president, Sanford Dole. Queen Liliuokalani died in 1917 at age 79.
Republic of Hawaii. Para bansa pa rin. Hindi na kingdom. Para naging America.
Territory lang ng Amerika.
Hindi pa Republic of Hawaii pa lang siya eh. May president, may own president.